Columbus City Council. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone for their preparation for today's hearing. Building and Zoning Services Director Scott Messer, who couldn't be here tonight due to a family commitment. Thank you for your work in preparing tonight's information. Also want to thank Deputy Director Tony Celebrezzi, as well as Assistant Director Festus Manley Spain from the Department of Building and Zoning Services for being here today to offer a presentation to this committee hearing. I want to thank members of the public who've come down either to City Hall or those streaming this hearing online to learn more about this process, which is related to the Building and Zoning Services fee schedule updates. The purpose of this hearing will be to review those proposed 2024 Building and Zoning Services fee schedule adjustments. This hearing is available to live stream on CTV website, and the video will also be posted on the City of Columbus YouTube channel following the event. I will now turn this hearing over to Building and Zoning Services Deputy Director Tony Celebrezzi and Assistant Director Festus Manley Spain to present details on these proposed adjustments. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Dorrance. On behalf of Building and Zoning Services, we appreciate the hearing to discuss our fee schedule, but I will cover a little bit of the background, and then Festus will cover some of the analytical pieces of it. So just for background, Building and Zoning Services is a fee-based department. We don't take any of the general fund. We are self-generating with our fees, and that's what supports our operations. The fee schedule is codified in city code. We do it once every 5 years based on a discussion and what the industry has preferred. They prefer to have 5 years of consistent fees, and so we raise fees and we operate at a surplus for 2 years. Third year we tend to break even, and then the fourth and fifth year we actually eat into that surplus and wind that surplus down. The last fee schedule we did was in 2019. We had hoped to raise revenue by about 15% over 5 years. At that time, we were able to also anticipate some growth in the industry, although COVID changed some of that. We did see some growth in the building industry, which allowed us to be able to weather a full 5 years. Our department expenses, as you can imagine, have continued to increase. Over 80% of our operation is staff, and so I just realized I did not put the. There we go. Could put the PowerPoint up there. Covered that slide already, so there's a lot of information here, but. As I mentioned already, we're reimbursed for the services that we provide. The fees that we charge, we typically try to, and it's an industry standard. The typical industry standard is between 0.5% and 1.5% of an overall construction cost. Ours are actually significantly lower than that. And we'll cover that in a few minutes under Festus. But when we do research on this, we compare our fees to the fees of multiple other cities across the country, mainly our peer cities. As you can see, the list of Cleveland, Cincinnati being local, along with Dublin, but then Nashville and Pittsburgh. We like to make sure we're staying competitive. Because that's the name of the game here. We want people to come to Columbus and know that they're not going to be slowed down in their projects by regulatory hurdles, that we're going to figure out ways to get things done. And to contextualize our fees, the overall, like I said, our overall fees are very small relative to the cost of any project, and our timelines are very quick turnarounds relative to other states. So, we're always trying to find different ways of being more competitive and using more technology to turn things around faster and to get things done, so that the buildings in the city that are being built are safe to inhabit, but there's also not unnecessary delays in them getting built. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Festus, and he can talk a little bit more in detail.
Thank you, Tony. So generally, when we look at the fees, we want our fees to align with the services that we provide. So in general, our fees are well aligned with the services that we provide. So for example of that is that 85% of our expenses are relating to building permits and additional inspections. Similarly, 81% of our revenue comes from fees related to the same. So that's one way of looking at when analysis we do to when we look at our fees. The second one that we do is the cost of construction. So this is overall a recommendation from the ICC. So generally they recommend fees should be between 0.5 to 1.5 of the overall construction cost of a project. So, for example, typical 200,000 square foot commercial building is currently, with the current fees, is 0.18% of the overall cost of construction. For a 500,000 square foot commercial building, that is 0.074 of overall cost of construction. So with this in mind, this is why we look to one of the key areas that we look to focus on when we went through this fee schedule analysis was to raise fees for these larger projects. So despite this fee increase, our commercial permits, the total permit cost would still be roughly 0.26 of the project's overall construction expenses. So this is for our new fees that we're proposing. So in summary, the fee changes are generally, we're looking to generate 35 to 40% more revenue annually over the next 5 years. We prioritize commercial building permits, as I said before, to do with these fee adjustments. Some residential permits fees are going to be higher, but they are still considerably moderate when compared to our peer cities. So commercial permit, the fee cap will increase to $100,000. As it is right now, it's $50,000, and these fees are calculated by square footage. So the bigger the building, the more fees it is. So right now, a 124,000 square foot building would hit our $50,000 fee cap, and if you want to construct anything above that, all you pay is $50,000. We're proposing to increase that fee to $100,000. So, for example, your typical 200,000 square foot commercial project, with implementing the cap, results in a savings of over $250,000 if we didn't have the cap in place. So, if there was no cap in place, a 200,000 square foot building, because of the cap in place, a 200,000 square foot building, you're looking to save about $250,000. Similarly, for a typical 500,000 square foot building, you're looking to save about $600,000 with the cap in place as is. So again, these proposed changes will ensure that we are reimbursed for our services and maintain our level of competitiveness with peer cities. So the following slides just show you where we do compare with those peer cities. As you can see here, Columbus is the first bar here, and you can see as Deputy Director Celebresi stated, we compared ourselves with Cincinnati, Cleveland, Nashville, Pittsburgh, and Dublin, and you can see Columbus is very competitive when it comes to a 32,000 square foot commercial project. Also, for a 200,000 square foot commercial project, you can see that we hit the cap at $100,000, while other municipalities are over that. We also wanted to take a look at your smaller projects, so your single family homes, and make sure that we're not having major adverse effects on their ability to construct in the city of Columbus. So you can see here how Columbus stands up to other municipalities. And that is all we have for you.
Thank you, Assistant Director. I appreciate the presentation. I know we normally would reserve this time for public testimony or questions or comments, but we did not receive any public speaker slips. So I'm going to ask a couple questions of the department to sort of clarify a couple things that I heard and make sure that this information is clear for anyone that's watching at home. You mentioned the last time the fee schedule was updated was 5 years ago. The hope was to raise revenue by 15% at that time. What has happened since that fee schedule, since that last updated the fee schedule?
We did reach the 15%, but not in a smooth bar, obviously. There was a lot of, first year of COVID, we were down significantly, and then it began to pick back up as we were able to modify our processes to get plans to be reviewed. We moved a lot of processes online and used a lot of technology to remotely review things and keep the building industry moving along. So,
Is there? I know you mentioned so obviously COVID was a significant disruption to development activity in Columbus, as obviously relates to fees. Permits are not being issued if in fact there's not development activity that's happening. How do you sort of look out from a 5-year period and say, hey, here's what sort of we expect to sort of happen within the development community in Columbus? So what sort of goes into that analysis as it relates to trying to make sure that, again, a department that's funded by these fees is going to have enough funding to operate?
most definitely. We spent probably almost a year working through the research that we did on the peer cities and others, and obviously we just pay attention to the market. There is the last few months we have seen a dip in the number of applications and permits coming through. We also continue to hear people talk about recession and other issues coming down the road, and that was part of the reason why we did not. Last time we anticipated roughly 3% growth a year for each of the 5 years. This time around, we did not anticipate any growth. So at this point, our projections are remaining that our income will remain flat, and so that's why we had to go with the higher fees. And should that calculation of remaining flat not pan out for some reason, things take off, we build up a larger reserve, then in 5 years we can look at reducing certain fees and trying to level that back out. But it's important for us to make sure that we have enough staff to complete inspections next business day and to do many of the different reviews in an expeditious fashion, so that we're not a delay factor in building, especially of multi-unit residential, which is, as you know, an issue right now with the lack of residential housing.
And is that sort of fair to say the tension here in general when sort of developing the fee schedule with, obviously, the development community is the one that's paying for this, right? So people that are applying for permits, they're the ones building things, they're the ones footing the bill for the permits, but also those permit fees then go towards, again, hiring staff to do inspections to make sure the things that are being built are up to code, are quality developments, within Columbus. Obviously, folks in that community are unlikely to want to pay a lot more, but also at the same time, they don't want to see significant delays to a project based upon not getting their project inspected and approved by the city. So, is that sort of the main tension for the department, of trying to think through how do we make sure we have, enough staff to make sure that we're not the slowdown here, while at the same time trying to balance that with, as you talk about, comparing ourselves to other peer cities around the state and around the country?
Correct. As I always joke, nobody wants to pay a permit fee. However, with the fees that they get right now, we have plans examiners when building plans first come in. According to the state, we have 30 days to do the review. We're getting them done in 20. We also have an expedited evening or an after-hours review process that on more simple and medium complex projects, we can get permits done in a week. You pay a premium for that, and we're limited in how much time our staff can do it. Then once the project's approved, we have our inspections, the inspection schedule during construction process. We will have inspections completed the next business day. once from the time they're scheduled. So you call in on Monday that you need an inspection for a rough-in, our inspector will be out there Tuesday morning to look at it and approve it and let you keep moving forward. And we've got other processes there where they can reserve a inspector to be on site for multiple hours if they need to help get things done. And we do weekend inspections also. Again, there's a premium that's paid for that because we've got to pay a premium for our staff to work overtime like that. And then through the whole process, we also have enacted a project management system that is helping encourage the private sector to get responses back to us in a timely fashion, because we found that was also, it sometimes would take them a while to get responses back to questions we had. So.
So I think the last question I have does relate to sort of how Columbus stacks up against our peer cities, right? To that point of no one wants to pay, too much for their fees, but also they don't want to wait at the back of the line to get things approved, right? So the presentation provided by the department demonstrates that we're sort of in the middle and towards the back of the pack as far as how much fees here cost compared to other peer cities. Obviously there's, as we, sort of talked about back and forth, that sort of tension that exists between those two things. Is there any concern from the department standpoint that we're being too easy on sort of making sure the permits come in? Obviously, when you look at sort of the revenues for the department, is there more that we could do if we only raised fees? Or is there, again, that concern is outweighed by the sense of then maybe that chills, development activity at a time, particularly in Columbus, where we're saying housing is a significant top priority to make sure that as the city continues to grow, that we don't see housing prices simply increase just because lack of new development within the city to house people that are coming here.
That is definitely a factor in our thought process as far as trying to make sure that our fees are not don't tamp down any enthusiasm for building more units. One of the things that's unique, as we pointed out, we're self-sufficient. In other cities, building and zoning departments, they feed into the general fund, so they're paying for a lot of other ancillary things that builders here don't have to pay for. We also, want to ensure that, having been self-funded also allows us to be a lot more nimble. That when we find something that we can do technology-wise, it's a little simpler for us to be able to dip into our fund, go through the right steps, as opposed to having to come back and pull more money out of the general fund, which usually typically is already spoken for. So it allows us to be much more nimble in our reactions to industry trends, and allows us to do much more with with technology.
Thank you. I don't know if Deputy Director or Assistant Director, I don't know if you have any other comments you'd like to make based upon either anything that I've asked at this point or anything from the presentation at this point you'd like to expound upon further? Great. Well, I want to thank you both. Obviously, this information has been provided to a number of stakeholders, and certainly this is the opportunity for the public to weigh in. And as I mentioned earlier in the hearing, we did not have any public speaker slips filled out. So this time I want to thank everyone who's engaged on this topic. Again, want to thank Department of Building and Zoning Services Director Scott Messer, Deputy Director Tony Celebrezzi, Assistant Director Festus Mainley Spain, and certainly my staff for helping to put today's hearing together. Again, thanks to the city clerk staff, CTV, Mark Carter from our team from the technology standpoint to get things here today. This obviously is helpful information for us to digest as this legislation comes before council in the coming days. I encourage anyone that's looking for more information on these fees or generally about the Department of Building and Zoning Services, you can check out that department's website or call 614-645-7433. If folks have questions specifically for my office or myself, you can reach us at 614-645-8201 or email me directly at radorns@columbus.gov. As it currently stands, Ordinance 3116-2023 to adopt the new combined development-related fee schedule for the Department of Building and Zoning Services, Public Service, Public Safety, to be effective on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, will appear for first reading on Columbus City Council agenda on Monday, December 4th at 5 p.m. and will be voted for passage the following Monday on December 12th. And with that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.